Russia's war machine is imploding. The Chasiv Mutiny and the collapse of Putin's military. A breaking point has arrived on the Ukrainian front. In a stunning act of defiance, Russian soldiers near the town of Chasiv, just outside the battered remains of Bakhmut, gunned down their own platoon commander before waving white flags and surrendering en masse to Ukrainian forces. This wasn't just a battlefield anomaly. It was a symbolic unraveling of Russia's military cohesion, a mutiny that could signal something far more dangerous for the Kremlin than enemy fire. A loss of internal control. The story has quickly become one of the clearest, most compelling signs yet that Vladimir Putin's war machine is cracking from within. Morale is disintegrating, discipline is collapsing, and perhaps most crucially, soldiers are starting to turn on their own leaders. Let's unpack exactly what happened, the circumstances that led to it, and what this one act of mutiny tells us about the much larger failure brewing inside Russia's war strategy. The incident. What happened near Chasiv? According to Ukraine's Defense Intelligence Directorate, the mutiny took place when a Russian unit, reportedly part of the 20th Combined Arms Army, was ordered to storm a heavily fortified Ukrainian position. But there was a problem. No artillery support, no armored vehicles, and no realistic plan. It was, by every account, a suicidal assault. When soldiers hesitated, their platoon commander escalated. He reportedly threatened to execute those who refused the order. But instead of caving to fear, the troops revolted. They shot him dead, abandoned their posts, and moved across contested terrain toward Ukrainian lines, surrendering to avoid retribution from Russia's own military police. The source of this story? The soldiers themselves, who, after surrendering, gave Ukrainian forces a first-hand account of the event. This wasn't propaganda. It wasn't a fabrication from afar. It was raw, unfiltered truth from inside the Russian ranks. Why this mutiny matters now. A single platoon going rogue won't win a war, but incidents like this have outsized strategic implications, especially when they occur in a military that depends so heavily on strict command chains and unquestioning obedience. Russia's military doctrine is deeply centralized. Orders flow downward with little flexibility or room for local commanders to adapt. When a unit refuses to follow orders, or worse, eliminates its own leadership, it doesn't just disrupt a single mission. It exposes a fundamental weakness in the system itself. A mutiny like the one near Chasiv doesn't just reveal anger or fear among the troops. It highlights a total breakdown in morale, trust, and command. And it raises serious questions about how long Russia can sustain an offensive war when it's fighting a battle on two fronts. The human cost, casualties, replacements, and a hollow army. Let's talk numbers. When the full-scale invasion began in early 2022, Russia had an estimated 900,000 active-duty soldiers, with another 2 million in reserves. At the time, around 160,000 troops were positioned near Ukraine's borders. Fast forward to mid-2025, and the picture is radically different. Russia now has 1.1 million troops on paper, but over 660,000 are deployed in Ukraine. Many of them are inexperienced conscripts, rushed to the front after just days or weeks of training. Why? Because Russia is bleeding men at an astonishing rate. According to Ukrainian estimates, Russia has surpassed 1 million military casualties, a number that includes both deaths and soldiers wounded beyond return. Even U.S. intelligence, traditionally more conservative, placed that figure at 750,000 as of March 2025. And if those trends continue, Russia could cross the 1 million mark by the end of this year, a figure not seen since the World Wars. Russia's problems go beyond the front lines. The entire military system is unsuited for modern warfare. First, the Russian army remains heavily rigid and hierarchical. Generals issue plans from miles behind the lines, often based on outdated or false information, while soldiers on the ground are expected to follow blindly, even when it means walking into a trap. Ukraine, on the other hand, has developed an army built around speed, adaptability, and drone surveillance. Its officers often have more autonomy, and its squads are empowered to react in real time. This asymmetry has created a nightmare for Russian units. Ukrainian drones, many of them piloted by civilian tech experts, can observe, intercept, and strike with frightening speed. Russian convoys and trenches are constantly under drone surveillance, with artillery ready to respond within seconds. So when Russia loses thousands of troops to such precision warfare, it tries to replace quality with quantity. But that only deepens the problem. The replacements are often poorly trained, poorly equipped, and demoralized from the start. Many arrive with little understanding of their mission, or even the geography they're fighting in. So far, at least 12 Russian generals have been confirmed killed in action, with some sources placing that number even higher. Ukrainian intelligence claims over 5,100 Russian officers have died as of mid-2025. That's more than just a statistic. In Russia's military structure, officers are the system. The death of a colonel, major, or general can leave an entire battalion leaderless. And Russia has shown little ability to promote capable replacements fast enough to maintain tactical coherence. Ukraine, recognizing this, has deliberately targeted officers with drones and HIMARS strikes, understanding that killing one commander can paralyze an entire offensive. The conscription crisis: who fights, who dies? A hidden scandal of Russia's war is who is being sent to die. When Putin ordered a partial mobilization in 2022, it deliberately avoided Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other major cities. Instead, the burden fell on poor rural regions, and disproportionately on ethnic minorities like Dagestanis, Buryats, and Tuvans. This was by design. The Kremlin didn't want the middle class or political elites to feel the pain of the war, but that decision has had massive unintended consequences. Today, the areas supplying the bulk of Russia's troops are also those least equipped to withstand population loss. The result is deepening economic stagnation, depopulation, and resentment, a demographic time bomb. And because the urban centers remain insulated, there is no political pressure to stop the war, only apathy, fueled by propaganda and distance from the front lines, a foreign legion of desperation. As Russian losses mounted, the Kremlin turned to foreign allies for help. North Korea sent an estimated 11,000 troops to the Kursk region in late 2024. Within months, over 2,700 were wounded and at least 300 killed. Some reports suggest that half the North Korean contingent was lost in just 6 months. Worse, there were multiple friendly fire incidents, including North Korean troops mistakenly engaging Russian and Chechen units. Iranian fighters have also been spotted, with video evidence showing communication breakdowns on the battlefield, as Persian-speaking soldiers struggle to understand Russian commands. These foreign deployments are a sign of desperation. Language barriers, incompatible training, and low morale have turned them into liabilities rather than assets. Economic decay, and a war Russia can't afford. This war is bankrupting Russia. Defense now consumes nearly 40% of the federal budget. Soldiers are being paid salaries far above the national average to keep them from deserting. Russia is buying drones, missiles, and ammunition from Iran, and paying North Korea not only for troops, but for military engineers and advisors. Meanwhile, the economy is contracting. Oil and gas revenues, once 40% of Russia's income, have plummeted, hit hard by sanctions and shadow fleet costs. Inflation is rising, supply chains are fractured, skilled workers are gone. Over 900,000 people have fled the country, many of them educated, middle-class professionals. This isn't just a military crisis, it's a systemic collapse. The strategic picture: a war unwinnable at this pace. At current rates of advance, about 50 meters per day in some sectors, Russia would need 230 years to fully occupy Ukraine, according to a Forbes analysis. And it would cost them upwards of 100 million casualties, more than the number of adult males in the country. It's absurd, and yet the Kremlin presses on. Why? Because to admit failure would undermine the regime itself. Putin cannot afford peace without victory, but he cannot afford victory either. Chasiv as a microcosm. The mutiny near Chasiv is a metaphor for the entire war. A commander, following blind orders from above, pushes his men towards certain death. They realize the absurdity, the futility, and instead of obeying, they revolt. They kill the symbol of their oppression and surrender to the enemy. This isn't just one unit going rogue. It's the war in miniature. Russia has created a system in which obedience is demanded, but trust is gone. A war is being waged in the name of national glory. But the nation isn't fighting it. Ethnic minorities, poor rural families, and foreign mercenaries are. And now even they are beginning to ask the most dangerous question of all. What are we really dying for? If you want to understand how Ukraine is using drone warfare and strategic intelligence to exploit these fractures, make sure to check out our companion video. To stay updated on this conflict and others shaping our world, subscribe and join the conversation.